What is your paper about? To find an answer to this question, you first have to consider the following question as well. First and foremost, is what you want to write about worth it? In other words, you have to ask yourself the so what test. What will be the contribution of the paper to this field you're interested in? If you write this paper, what will change in the way academics see the field? What will you bring to the table that hasn't been said before in those terms? To answer this question, you have to build your literature review, the core elements in an academic paper. It will be tantamount to know what your contribution may be to your field of interest. The second question is, with whom should I discuss in order to make sure that you pass the so what test? How do you ensure that you pass the so what test? This part is as scientific as it is political. You have to be sure that the vocabulary that you use in the frame of your proposition will be coherent with the way the reviewer will make sense of the issue you're raising. To ensure that, identify colleagues and members of your network that can help you position the paper in the terms that you have chosen. Finally, the third question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of paper do you want to write? Academics' paper can have different goals. Whether your goal is theoretical, empirical, or a methodological one, the design of the paper will be different. As the contributions and aim of these papers are different, so will be the setting, the methodologies, and the research question. Your contribution will be impacted by this orientation. For instance, if you're looking to publish in medical journal, for example like the New England Journal of Medicine, which is oriented toward clinicians as well as researchers, the journal will not be looking for the same contribution as a pure biological-oriented journal, for example Nature or Cell. All these questions and elements are linked to your research question. The research question is the main question raised in your paper, and the one you bring elements of answer to in the paper. In short, you have to understand the field you're researching in. Know what you can contribute to it, and know how to communicate your contribution to this academic community. You have to position your paper so that the community of researchers you are specialized in the theme you have chosen will accept it. Many researchers struggle when it comes to writing literature review for their research paper. A literature review is a comprehensive overview of all the knowledge available on a specific topic till date. When you decide on a research topic, usually the first step you take in the direction of conducting research is learn more about the previous research published on the topic, and this eventually translates into literature review when you write your research paper. Literature review is one of the pillars on which your research idea stands since it provides context, relevance, and background to the research problem you are exploring. Literature review essentially involves two steps. Surveying and critically reading the existing literature. This step is commonly referred to as experimental literature review. Summarizing and actually penning down the gist of your review in an organized manner. This is known as theoretical review. Literature review could be a part of a dissertation or research article, and a standalone literature review. Let us look at this in more detail. Every research report, thesis, or research article begins with an introduction to the topic of research. This forms the literature review for the article. The main purpose of the review is to introduce the readers to the need for conducting the said research. A literature review should begin with a thorough literature search using the main keywords in relevant online databases such as Google Scholar, PubMed, etc. Once all the relevant literature has been gathered, it should be organized as follows. Background literature about the broad research topic to introduce the readers to the field of study. Recent progress on the study topic, which can be organized thematically or chronologically. Ideally, separate themes should be discussed in a chronological manner to describe how research in the field has evolved over time and to highlight the progress in the field. The review should include a comparison and contrast of different studies. Discussing the controversial aspects helps to identify the main gaps that need to be worked upon. This is essential for defining the problem statement of the study and highlighting the significance of the research under question. Once a problem statement has been defined, the strengths and pitfalls of other studies that have tackled the problem statement should be discussed. This is important for outlining the need and novelty of the research. A literature review should not be a mere recounting of all the available information. It should be a critical and analytical summary of the selected literature that guides the readers through the central theme of the research. Literature reviews can also be written as standalone articles. These are not different from the literature review sections described above, however, they are not followed by experimental data. They basically fall into two broad categories: narrative reviews and systematic reviews. Narrative reviews are theoretical discussions of relevant information on a particular topic and its critical analysis. These are mostly qualitative in nature, similar to the review sections of larger articles. Narrative reviews are usually organized as follows: introduction that establishes the context of the field of research and the topic of the review. Body is normally used for describing the different themes under the main topic by dividing them into different subheadings. This section compares and contrasts published studies and identifies gaps that have not been addressed or have been unsuccessfully addressed. Conclusions. This section differs slightly between reviews, which are part of research articles, and narrative reviews. The section describes the main conclusions from analysis of all the current studies and puts forth further avenues for research. This section requires critical interpretation by the author such that the review adds value to existing literature. It should bring out ideas and hypotheses that can explain any discrepancies and provide solutions to existing problems. Systematic reviews, on the other hand, follow a well-planned methodology to qualitatively or quantitatively analyze a defined number of studies. They usually focus on a single question and have clear study objectives that are worked upon in a systematic manner. These studies are based on a well-defined strategy, unlike narrative reviews. Systematic reviews and narrative reviews are organized slightly differently. The details are described below. Introduction. Systematic reviews begin with specific research questions that are defined in terms of the samples and research outcomes to be studied. Methods. These studies have a comprehensive methodology that starts by narrowing down the literature for the review. Usually, specific inclusion and exclusion criteria are set based on the research questions, and databases are searched based on these criteria. Once the sample studies have been shortlisted, they are analyzed in detail. Results. The results section for these studies involves comprehensive data analysis to determine the significance of the study outcomes. Systematic reviews can be accompanied with meta-analysis, which involves statistical analysis of the included studies to increase the power of the results. And discussion. This section usually interprets the study data based on their weighted significance and the power of the results. The study therefore provides strengthened results that are validated by the scientific rigor of the analytical method. Before starting to write a review, it is important to determine what kind of review you want to write and follow the appropriate style and guidelines. An effective literature review is important for the complete life cycle of a research, from defining the right research goals to correctly interpreting and presenting the research results. Let's assume that during the process of literature review, you have to clearly identify the gap, but how to concretely fill it. You have mapped your scientific literature after laborious work of detection, reading, writing. You have depicted out the problem you want to resolve, or at least make a contribution to the literature that has already been studied by the researcher in your community. Then you think it will be interesting to further the research around this question, which needs more investigation. And this is what we call the gap. It's not a matter of has it already been done, but is it possible to go further in this direction in an original way? For example, you should maybe never write that it has never been done before, because the reviewer will tell you that maybe there was a reason, or it's just not interesting. So now you are aware of this, you must explain in your article how you can really contribute to the scientific community by filling the gap in the literature. We define it as a blank theoretical space that you really hope at least partially to fill thanks to your paper. The logical way to accomplish this after presenting your gap is to explain your objectives and how you want to fill this gap. The first step will be to present your research question. The research question of your article will be the most important sentence of your article, because it will make the links between the gaps you will define and how you propose to fill it. The research question is the keystone of your paper. It has to be clear, precise, and concise, but not too general. If someone asks what is your article about and sum it up in a few words, the white line research question should be the answer. It should be the one sentence tracking out your paper.